turning your light on, understanding your self-worth, and seeing yourself even when you've dimmed your light and other people see your light shining brightly. Welcome to Sunday Moments on Coconut Oil, Stardust, and Dope Vibes. So those of you who follow me, your resident fairy godmother, Tamara Angela, you'll know that I'm a bit of a storyteller. I always have some type of, parable or something that goes with whatever the topic of discussion is. And I truly believe that's because as a conduit, I'm led to kind of go through some things, and that nothing that we go through is in vain. And so we're supposed to talk about these things, testify, give testimonial, share, so other people know that they are not alone, and that, this human experience, there are common threads that pull us all together. So, a while ago, started this journey. I've always known that I've had gifts. I've always been encouraged to use my gifts. So it would be things like, my family knew that I had what Black folks call premonitions. So if I had a dream and I'm like, oh, I saw such and such, then they would just be like, all right, well, what did they say? Like, what did they tell you to do? Okay, go ahead and follow that instruction. Like, it was very matter of fact in that regard. And so I've always known to follow. And, I remember my mom growing up would be like, well, what do you think? She always gave it back to me. I would be looking at a situation and she'd be like, well, what do you think? What do you feel about the situation? How do you feel like you should move? And it really taught me to hone in on my intuition and just follow it, right? So I remember my grandmother told me, I was probably 14 or 15. She's like, look, there's going to be this point in your life where it's this breaking point, mid to late 30s, and you're going to have to walk this walk, and it's going to be immense, and you're going to have to walk this walk, and I won't be here with you. And at the time I couldn't fathom, because I don't even remember really knowing how old my grandmother was, but I mean, she was old school grandma age, not this new age 35-year-old grandma. She was real grandmother age. And I said, okay, so I get to the end, get to my mid 30s. Here goes the catalyst. Everything is coming apart. But to be honest, that all was triggered around that 2012 window when Neptune moved into Pisces. And a lot of us who have a charge and assignment right now, a lot of us were triggered at that time through immense changes and loss and transformation. And so here I am, and I remember I would always call into psychics or tap into psychics with a friend, and we called one year, and because we hadn't done a reading for fun in a minute, and so we called this psychic line, and I remember the psychic, her name was Nevada. And she was just kind of going in on me. She was like, oh, your energy is so mucky. It's like mud, and I don't understand why it's like this. What's wrong with, you're not awake? What is going on? She told me this space to go to. She's like, oh, you're in Atlanta. You need to go to this meetup. This is what, 6, 7, 8 years ago or whatever. So meetups were just kind of coming into play, and she's like, you need to go to this meetup. You're gonna find other people like you. I'm like, okay. But I remember just being frustrated because she was frustrated with me, and she's like, oh, I don't understand why you don't see yourself. This is just insane. This is crazy. So but I took it and I was like, let me write this down, and I wrote down everything that she said, because I'm like, something here is gonna come together. So I didn't go to the meetup. It took me months to go. I probably didn't go for another 6 months, but I ended up there. So I end up going with another homegirl. We went to, she was like, she wanted to go to this metaphysical store. So I'm like, okay, I didn't really, to this day, this particular store makes me feel nothing. I don't, it doesn't really do anything for me at that store. I don't really connect with anybody that's in that store or anything that they do. But she's like, okay, let's go to this store. I'm like, okay. I touch some angel cards. The cards start flying out the deck. And she's like, you need to get with some cards. And I remember feeling overly warm from that sensation and just having this experience. And then she said, well, there's this other place that's down the street and they're Black owned. So we should go down there. Like, they have a psychic fair. We can go get a reading. I said, okay, cool. So we go down the street. We go to a diner, have some lunch or whatever. And we go down the street and go to this place. And she goes in. We're like the last two people there to sign up because they were actually getting ready to close. We got there just in time through traffic. So they take her on back. And I remember the other ladies were standing there and they were just kind of staring at me with this look like, what's she doing here? So I'm sitting there and I'm like, when are they going to call me? And they were like, oh, you really want a reading? And I'm like, yeah. Like, my name on the list. Like, yes. And I remember the owner says, you about the most powerful thing in this room. What you want us to read you for? Like, we can do it, but what are you doing? And I was like, what the heck? So one of the ladies takes me back. And she says, when I get back there, she said, are you here for real? And I'm like, yeah, like, I feel like stuff is just discombobulated or whatever. And there's something that's supposed to come through and it's not coming through. And so she sits me down and she does this reading she didn't do like a traditional reading. She's like, look, I want you to look up these terms. And she gives me some stuff and I still have it all written down. And she says, if these are confusing for you after you look it up, you need to come see me one-on-one, but you don't need a traditional reading. You need to wake up. And I'm like, what? And she said, you're not awake yet. You need to wake up. And she said, that's why we're all standing here staring at you, because we're trying to figure out, like, we can see you and we're trying to figure out why you here. Like, I don't understand what you're doing here. And she said, we thought that you were playing. And I'm like, no, like, seriously, I feel like something's missing. And she's like, yeah, you're not awake yet. And we've all gone through that phase. And, moral of the story, fast forward, eventually the light comes on. I get it. I start walking in it. And the more I walk in it, the more it opens up. So it's like every single step I take, here comes some more things that open. Here comes some more things that open. And, finally here we are today, right? So it's taken some time. It's taken a couple years to even get to the point where stuff is open the way that it needs to be. So I look at that story and it reminds me, because I do the same thing to other people. I see them before they see themselves. So a lot of I cheer on like girls online. I'm like, yes, these are I love them. These are they're gorgeous. Just not just physically, but I can see their light. And a lot of times I'll just wait because it's not up to me to go and be like, hey, your light's off. It's up to me to just show up and be there. And then eventually people come because they see me and their light recognizes light. And then they're like, hey, I don't know why I'm here, but I'm here. And I'm like, oh, great. Here you go. And then I start tapping and turning the light on. I start flipping the dimmer switch and turning it up. And walking with you through that process of you turning your light on until the point where you just never turn it off, right? Because that's what you're supposed to do. It reminds me of how our teachers, often our teachers and coaches can see our potential before we even see that potential in ourselves. And so many people I see are walking around with their light off. Their light is dim. They don't understand. They don't have a full understanding of who they are. And a lot of this is systematic. A lot of this is by design. You're told to be humble. And in that humility, what you have to do is be more quiet for people who don't understand themselves. Because we don't want to disturb them or make them feel bad for not knowing who they are. And you need to turn your light down a little because your light is a little too bright. And it makes other people uncomfortable. You're asking too many questions. Calm down. You talk too much. You're a little too chatty. We look at all of those things. We tell kids early, you know what? You can't stand up. You can't be a kinetic learner. You can't learn through movement. You have to sit at a desk for 8 hours a day and move through the hallways on a routine schedule and sit here, and you can only ask questions during this time period. And if you have other questions or you can't grasp a concept within the span of 45 minutes, a brand new concept that you've never seen before, you have to grasp it in a 45-minute class. And if you don't, that means there's something wrong with you. If you need more time than that, then you have to set up this time afterwards to sit and talk to me. And it's almost given to you like a penalty, like it's something wrong with you, that you didn't walk into this class, into 8 classes for a day, and grasp everything within the span of 45 minutes. Something's wrong with you. We're constantly being bombarded with these ideas that something is wrong. And then on top of that, we're given so much information at rapid fire that we can't digest it all. And so our attention spans are shot. We're expected to process all of this stuff. And what do we end up doing? A lot of times mindlessly scrolling. Here comes anxiety. We are way off base to the point where we're not able to manage our nervous systems enough to be able to just manage knowledge the way that we need to, because we're supposed to intake the knowledge, but we're also supposed to have applied knowledge, right? And so here we are, a lot of times in a space where it makes us feel unworthy. I'm not smart enough. I didn't grasp this in enough time. I didn't get this concept. They went over my head. Or sometimes that teacher could be a great teacher, but they're not a good teacher for you, because they don't get the way that you process things, or you guys communication wise, things just don't add up. They don't work out for you. And then you're left feeling like, I don't get it. And it's something wrong with me for not getting it. Our self-worth gets tied up in that. And so we have these messages earlier on. And then when it comes time to have, information come at your soul, information about your intuition, and how to act in discernment, and how to guide yourself through your soul understands it and recognizes it, and it doesn't feel foreign to your soul, but it feels foreign to your mind and your heart, because you've been programmed otherwise. And so now here comes the fight. Here comes the struggle, because you know that this feels right. This information sounds right. This information feels right. But then somebody else has been constantly telling you that this isn't the way it goes. You have to have receipts. You have to have confirmation. You have to validate things. There has to be this concrete knowing in order for stuff to make sense and in order for me to use it. We've taken ourselves out of those infinite ideas, those ideas that are beyond the horizon for our minds, right? And so then it's difficult. It's difficult. And your self-worth is wrapped up in that once again. A lot of times when my clients come to me and their intuition has already told them what the answer to the thing is that they're going to ask me, but they want me to tap in and validate it. Did I see this correctly? Did I hear this correctly? Did I experience this correctly? Did I translate this correctly? Did this make sense? Was I able to hear this the right way? And God knows we all need a little bit of confirmation and validation. It helps. It totally helps. But what do you do in those moments when you don't have someone else to constantly tell you to walk this way? Here, put your foot here. Put your left foot here. Put your right foot here. And if you continue to do that, that means that you're walking on the right path. Like, we've been so conditioned to not get things wrong and to have to answer things a certain way, that it leads us out of a space where we can actually walk in our light and use our intuition. We've been told that humility is being quiet, being more calm, letting other people, let me make room for other people to show up. Well, what if nobody else wants to show up in their light? Then I have to sit here all this time being quiet in mine because nobody else showed up in theirs, or I'm waiting for other people to show up in theirs. Typically, when I'm in my light and my light is fully on and other people show up in their light, there's no competition. They don't show up and say, you know what, girl, I need you to turn your light down because I got to shine. People who are really about walking in their light and their purpose, they're going to look at you and say, yes, let's go do this together. If there's any other conversation, that person's not really walking in their light. Now that gets into what I call light mimics. There are a lot of people who can mimic the light, the love, all of those things that we're supposed to have. They have a way of being able to mimic that. And it ends up being quite problematic, honestly, because it makes it hard for people to actually understand. It's not really totally that hard to understand when you're operating really, truly in your own gifts. You might miss some things from the very beginning, but you won't go too far down the rabbit hole where you've gotten too wrapped up in all the wrong stuff. Your self-worth being wrapped up in all of these things to the point where it makes you dim your light. Why are you with people that require that you turn your light down? You know, for the longest time, I still am, the friend that takes all the pictures. I know it's annoying to people in the moment, but then when we go back, I'm always the one who has the archive. And I'm like, oh, remember this. And people always are happy to receive the memories, but they're like, oh my gosh, she's taking more pictures. All right. I've been that person since Polaroids, since disposable cameras. Like, I still have the little flash camera. When you had to go develop all your photos and stuff like that was me. I was that girl. I'm still that girl. I like the energy that comes from photos. I like capturing a moment. I like capturing people's energy, and I like the stories that it tells. And so, I'm always the person that shows up and takes the pictures. But it wasn't until recently that I had people who were able to take good pictures of me. Sometimes I think it's just that people are just horrible picture takers. And that can be it. But the other thing is just that people who take good pictures of you have a knack for seeing you in a way that you don't see yourself. And so they'll take the picture and say, hey, I want you to look like this. Use this angle. This looks better. They'll turn you around. They'll get you in lighting. They'll do whatever it takes to make sure that you look great. And it has nothing to do with them. I had people who would just snap the picture and just be like, oh, here you go. And I was like, they don't even really see me. Or the opposite of that is they do see you, but they just don't care to try to pull more out of you, and they don't want to capture your light. People who are uncomfortable and subconsciously measure themselves against you. Sometimes they're running a race with you and you didn't even show up to the start line. You're not even there at the start line, but they're busy running a race and looking back to see if you ever join in. You have to watch for those false pleasantries. Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you. Oh my gosh, I could never do that. Can you be proud of your friend and not measure whether or not you would do that? Because you don't even factor into the sentence. Like, that's not what that's about. Can you just be proud for your friend? And if you do find yourself, just saying, gosh, I love how she does that, I wonder where she gets that courage from, then that conversation looks different, where you're just like, I love how you just go for it. Like, what is that? How do you do that? How do you find that courage to just be like, I'm going to jump off the cliff? I would love to have that kind of courage. I don't know that I have it. I don't know where to pull it from. Where do you pull yours from? That's an emotionally intelligent conversation. Versus the other one where there's a comparison. Sometimes those comparisons are loud and sometimes they're silent. You can just tell by the way that the person moves around you and some of their actions and how those actions come out against you in that time. So this Sunday moment, I want you really to look at what life looks like right now. Is your light turned all the way on? Is it halfway on? Are you walking around with your light dim? Do you have other people around you that help you to turn your light up and say, no, come take this picture because you look really good in that? Every time you're being self-deprecating, which can actually get tiresome for people when you're constantly self-deprecating. But can you say, do you have friends who are just like, girl, nah, come on, or yo, come on, like, just come on over here. Let me take this picture of you. I love this, like, where they're constantly helping you to turn your light on. Do you hang with other people who have their light on? Or is that vexing to you? The way to feel confident in turning your light on and turning it all the way up is to hang with other people who live in that frequency. Because it's going to encourage you to turn yours on. Eventually, you'll get to the point where you're like, gosh, I'm living over here in the dark and their stuff is so bright. And when you see that yours can be bright too, you want to add to that circle and add to that collective. Your self-worth, your self-esteem, your self-image can be tied into so much because we receive this messaging all the time that tells us to be humble and to turn it down, and you don't need to be loud, and oh my gosh, that's just cocky, that's being way too cocky, that they find your confidence actually cocky, which is two different things, where people are just like, oh no, you're not supposed to brag about all this stuff. Yeah, there's a degree in which you should brag, because people should know about your accomplishments, because somewhere there's somebody else looking to accomplish something and they think that their idea is crazy or too far-fetched, and then they see you. They see that you did it and they're like, oh, shoot, then I wasn't crazy. That fire in my soul, I did perceive that. I can go do this thing. This is actually attainable because I seen this other person do it. Now let me go ahead and set on the road because that's where I'm supposed to be. And now I know I'm not crazy. You do need to brag. We do need to talk about accomplishments. If you're hanging with people who are uncomfortable with you speaking on your accomplishments, you need to get a new group. You need to get a new group. If you're hanging with people who are not genuinely happy when things level up for you, you need to get a new group. There are other people out there who will be genuinely happy for you, who will encourage you, who will say, you know what, have you ever thought of doing blah, blah, blah? Because, like, I could see it in you. Like, have you ever tried that? You need to try this. Oh, yeah. You have to change up the frequency and the conversation that you're having if you're not having more of conversation on that level. Turn your light on. It sounds super easy, and I probably made it sound like, I probably minimized it a bit, and people are like, oh my gosh, it's not that easy. It actually is that easy. Where it becomes difficult is that your messaging and your current environment tells you not to, and you're constantly fighting against it. So everything looks difficult. Everything looks hard. It looks like something you shouldn't do. It looks like something that's a impossible feat. It looks like something you can't accomplish. when it really, truly is. I want you to share your thoughts on this Sunday moment. Share them with me. You can email me. You can message me through Spotify. You can tweet. I would love for you guys to tweet, share on Facebook, and just share the podcast. Share it in your text threads, your text messages, your group chats. I want us to start getting some conversation going that is encouraging and empowering and uplifting. That's the way that we change the tide on so many of the things that are happening now. Thanks for joining me on Coconut Oil, Stardust, and Dope Vibes for our Sunday moment.